Hey guys, Any Figure Therapy here today, and we're going to be talking about a relatively new release. It is going to be the supposedly 1/12 scale Sentinel transforming Johanna / Anat from Persona 5. Here is the figure in question right here, just a quick turnaround. It is meant to scale with the Figma Max Factory nijima Makoto from Persona 5 as well, and they look amazing together, and so there's that. So, real quick, just to kind of show off the vehicle mode a little bit more, here it is compared to the Aoshima Arsene Lupin kit, and they look great together because I really hope that eventually Aoshima starts to pump out more personas, just because I really like displaying the personas with their persona users, and because it just makes for a really dynamic sort of display. They used to do it with D-Arts. D-Arts did a D-Arts Thanos to go with the Makoto. They're not necessarily to go with, but then when Figma released the Makoto Yuki, it made sense for them to go together. And then the D-Arts Izanagi to go with the Persona 4 Narukami Yu, and then Sakura to go with the Yukiko, and then etc. etc. But they didn't make it very far. They never really end up doing the full team. But with the popularity of Persona 5, I hope they kind of get to it more, just because they pump out a lot of Persona 5 stuff. But yeah, so that's that. Let's go ahead and talk about the box really quick. So here is the box itself. It's a very nice, kind of glossy, kind of standard box. Here's the transform mode on the side. The style of the box is very akin to the animation, because this is actually from the animation and not from the game. In the game, you do unlock a knot by, I think, max breaking Makoto's confidant. So yeah, I actually haven't done it personally because I did on instead. But yeah, so there's that. It is done by Sentinel, which is basically a company that likes to make very expensive things. They're known for their other stuff, like their Gurren Lagann, or their Robot line, which is more robot stuff. But this is interesting just because it's one of their few kind of, I guess, non-robot stuff. They do have their 4-inch line, which is the Fate stuff, and then also their main stuff, which is the more higher quality, like the Genesis Climber Mosquito and whatnot. So there's that. Now what you get in the box is basically this instruction booklet, which is super nice. It's all full color, which is very nice as well. A lot of nice product shots towards the back. You get display stand parts, so these are just two of the parts that come with it that are already, some of them which are already on the display itself. You get this little blade, which does have a place to be stored in the vehicle mode. But I just decided to leave it out just because the paint is really nice and I don't really want to chip it up. But yeah, so there's that. And then you also get a couple of different display options right here. You get this this little piece right here, which is a hexagonal kind of peg, and you can change it to different angles. That way you can have a little bit more dynamic writing poses. And then here you have an articulated arm, which is very nice and very solid. So you don't really have to worry about it falling or anything, which... there goes the scarf. We're going to leave that scarf off. So basically, and then that arm would peg into this assembly, which would go with these bits right here. But we'll show that off more in the Anat mode. So taking Makoto off really quick here. Boop. She doesn't really have a place to peg on, so it is a lot of a balancing act. The bike itself is very nice. It comes together really nicely as long as you kind of transform it really well. A lot of the panels meet together really crisp, so you can kind of tell back here. These lines where they meet together are actually really thin, so it makes it look pretty well hidden that it transforms. Also, there's a lot of parts pinned together super well, which is nice. One big thing is the price of this figure. So the price of this figure, MSRP, is around 20,000 yen, which should run you about 190 USD, or give or take some. But yeah, so... given that price, and also the price that it's going for right now, which is about around 250 to 300, I had this little problem, which is basically I got two sides of the same, or two parts of the same side. So technically, even in bike mode, it looks a little wonky just because I can't make that front shield piece right here. But yeah, that kind of annoys me just because I've had this problem with Figmas a lot, where I basically just get a bad paint quality or bad mold quality of a Figma, and then I have to go through Good Smile to go deal with this problem. And back then they were super cool about it. I guess now, since they kind of experienced a lot of that fraud stuff, they're really much more on my case about it, or on people's case in general. But it's kind of annoying just because why do I keep getting these items that have problems? Yeah, especially since they're so expensive. But yeah, that's just a quick side rant. But ultimately, this figure is really nice and high quality, aside from that little problem right there. And also the price itself is a little high for what it is, but like I mentioned before, Sentinel tends to do a little bit of higher end stuff. Most of their stuff ranges from like the 100 to maybe $200-300. So yeah, unfortunately. But taking a look at the stand really quick here, this is the standard kind of Sentinel stand. This is most of the weight in the box, so when you pick up the box, you'll be like, oh boy, I hope there's die cast, but it's actually just this stand. But yeah, the stand is pretty nice. I kind of wish it was a little bit smaller just because it takes up so much real estate on a shelf compared to like the Arsene stand. But of course, it being a bike, it has to have a little bit more room to kind of stand there really nicely. But yeah, so there's different parts for you to slot in. So there's holes right here, and then this arm itself is on this little rectangular hole. This is actually really hard to get out, so I can't even get it off on camera. But so that's why I'm just gonna leave it there. There's this little clear window. I've never really been sure what the clear window is for. A lot of their other products have the same thing. So yeah, there's that. Overall, a nice stand. Now, kind of getting into the transformation of things, first off, you want to separate the legs out there on these ball joints. Then you want to push this piece on the front up, and then kind of just loosen up all the pegs. That way you can kind of get a little bit more working room. Then this whole front thigh piece, or this thigh piece, can kind of swivel forward. Same with the other side. So just kind of loosen everything up. Now, I've transformed this a couple times. So far, I really haven't had any situations of paint like rubbing off against each other, which is awesome. I like that a lot. But unfortunately, there are parts where it kind of butts up against it really roughly, and it kind of makes me worried. Like, for example, this front tire bumps up, is not a lot of clearance, so you can kind of tell it doesn't roll super great. But same, the back one is a little bit better, but it also butts up against this crotch piece right here, which is annoying. But yeah, so back to the transformation, kind of just rotating everything around. Then you want to rotate the feet out, and then rotate this mid upper section up, or you can actually leave that to the front, but it really depends. I guess for transformation's sake, we'll leave it to the front. But basically, there you have the feet, and then you want to rotate this part back down. It's on a little bit of a hinge joint, which is super nice. And then doing the same on the other side, just to kind of get everything loose there. And then this front piece also slides up, which is nice to kind of give you that extra clearance. So just rotating everything around, and there's basically the legs. It's pretty simple. It's interesting because the design of Anat itself is, or herself, is that she just unfolds as a bike. So it's not really that complex, I guess. Most of the complexity comes in the upper portion where you just split that. You can go ahead and rotate these panels upward a little bit, which kind of flare them out. And then you want to go in here. This is like the tricky part. So you want to untab the back wheel and then just kind of pull this back section up. I also like to loosen up all these parts in the back. But then you want to take the front handlebars and rotate them up. But before that, you take off this blue piece. It'll swivel back up. So you basically have all these parts just floating around. You want to push this front part forward. That way you can release the engine block. Now the engine block itself will rotate up, and then you want to split it in half, and this will come into play later. Then you want to just take the arms out of their little cradle portion. Now granted, the most hard part of transforming this is the arms. Honestly, I recommend kind of looking at the instructions a little bit more over that, just because it's a little bit annoying. And then you want to rotate the arms forward. These little gold bits flip it up. And then these bits on the side can just kind of stay on the side. You can open up the hand if you want to. There is a little bit of articulation on the fingers, which is nice. Yeah, so taking that, kind of positioning it into place. And then you want to rotate these undercarriage parts to the back. That way it's kind of out of the way. Now here's the big reveal. So basically you take this front tire and you would push it all the way down, showing off the Anat head. And then this front portion will kind of rotate down as well. This whole section will rotate in and push all the way to the core. And then you want to take this back portion, flip this little engine part forward, and then push this part back. It's on a sliding rail. And then there's a little peg that will go ahead and peg into this hole back here. It's not necessarily a peg, it's more of like just a hole for it to be stored. But yeah, so there's that. And then, before you do all that though, you want to make sure this Johanna head is hidden away. So basically, when you have the clearance, you rotate the Johanna head in behind the Anat head. Now, granted, the clearance is kind of rough there, so a lot of times I find the head bumping into the back of the red part of the head, which is kind of weird because it's like, oh, red on white is kind of worrisome. But yeah, so then once you have all that, you'll have enough clearance, and then you just want to ever so gently push this part into that hole. Now, granted, it's a little bit tough, and at this point, you're a little bit worried because it's a very expensive figure, which is the thoughts that are racing through my mind right now. But, yeah, so basically, oh my gosh, I think I just broke it. Wait, actually, never mind. Okay, just kidding. Okay, so that part actually unpegs, but basically, you have to push it up, and then it'll kind of go into place like that. So, that's actually really funny because what actually happened is that I took the glue part off. So, yeah, that's awesome. So, granted, that's just me using a little bit too much force. Basically, it'll just go like that. Like I said, the clearance is kind of like a sketchy portion. So I'll just leave it to the side for the review. And that's also kind of funny. But basically, then you want to split the shield in the front and flip this little heart part out. And then this is also another sketchy part. It's the head. You actually have to pull it up and then squeeze the horns forward to rotate up the horns. The instructions tell you to do that, which is kind of weird. I just like to usually rotate the head slightly to the side to take out the horns. And then you want to flip out these little silver bits on the side. And like that right there. So like I said, there's a lot of clearance stuff going on, and you kind of just have to fiddle with it. But yeah, once you have that done, you can flip these out to the side, and then this top part will just kind of sit back here. And then these undercarriage parts can just go ahead and push into this cradle right here, and then you can go ahead and push them in slightly just to kind of meet with the rest of the body. Now, this part is also kind of weird. So you'd expect this part to stay in the front just to make it look a lot better, but you actually have to rotate this back, and that will rotate the wheel back up here, and then you can flip the legs down, and that's basically how it's actually supposed to be. So I think that's kind of funny, especially since that looks a little weird, just having a big gaping hole in the chest, or in the middle part, I guess, like the abdomen. But yeah, just kind of fixing everything there. And then you want to take this back piece, and there's these pegs on the engine part, and then you would just peg them into back here. So granted, given that I actually did kind of technically break something, I guess, but it can be fixed with glue, that is kind of the transformation in a nutshell. It's a little difficult to pull off. Granted, I think I put too much force there, so we'll just leave that. It's supposed to just sit back here, and basically you'll have the wheel kind of jutting out. But yeah, isn't that cool? So that aside, it's actually a really nice figure. It's very interestingly designed in its, I guess, like robot mode or a knot mode. Its size is actually pretty cool as well. But before that, let's get it on the stand just before I break anything else. But yeah, so basically you would take those little clear parts and then pop them on the side of this back wheel, which is basically your mounting point. And then there's these 4 holes that would just go ahead and peg into those little stand parts. Now, obviously, she can't stand on her own because of just the design of her heels. But yeah, so there she is like that. So just kind of getting everything cleaned up a little bit. Like that, and then we're going to raise the camera ever so slightly just to kind of accommodate her new height. So there they are together. They look pretty good together. I like that a lot, that she kind of matches the height of Arsene Lupin, and that's actually super nice. So here is the Makoto figure as well with her. Now she stands about, I want to say, a good like 6 or 7 inches, which is a good size, and maybe 7 or 8, but yeah, basically it's a good size for her. They scale really well with the Figmas. I think they're practically made to scale with the Figmas, but yeah, so there's that. In terms of articulation, it's kind of what you expect. No articulation in the main abdomen section. The head has a actually pretty good amount of movement as long as you make sure that all these parts are kind of out of the way. And then the arms have a lot of movement as well. There's a double ball joint at the shoulder, a double hinge at the elbow. These fingers can open up a little bit. The thighs can rotate up and out. The ball joint is pretty deep on there, so it's a lot of articulation there. There's a rotation at the thigh, double bend at the knee, and then a nice free joint at the ankle. So basically you can get all sorts of cool poses out of her. Granted, I'm not too sure if she actually did any cool fighting poses, but and then the knife itself, there's a peg in the hand, and you would just basically peg that right there, and that's how she would have her little knife. Yeah, but I just like her without the knife just because it's like, it looks more cool, I guess, because kind of personas, they don't really do much physical attacks. They usually use, like, you know, their energy attacks, so like Mafreya or whatnot. But yeah, so ultimately it's a pretty cool figure. I say that with the greatest of confidence, considering that a piece kind of came off, but that is on me in itself as a reviewer. I think I just put too much force on that piece. So like I said, be a little bit more delicate with this, it being kind of an expensive figure. But yeah, ultimately that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that very interesting kind of review of the Sentinel transforming Johanna. So have a good one.